I'm Amos, host of Undaunted, a proud member of the Gonna Geek Network, just like the show you're listening to now. The opinions expressed are those of each individual host. Check out all the other podcasts at GonnaGeekNetwork.com and get ready, because geekiness begins in 3, 2, 1.
This is the official GonnaGeek.com show. Here we're a bunch of geeks talking about geeky things. Each week we run down the latest news and happenings in the world of geek. These are your hosts for the show, Steven.
But what if I'm in the mood for a T-Swift story?
Chris.
I've heard the X is going to give it to you.
And SP.
That's how we roll on Gonna Geek on Monday night. We get crazy!
Gonna Geek Productions presents the official GonnaGeek.com show.
Hello and welcome to an all-new episode of the official GonnaGeek.com show. I'm Steven John Drew, and with me, of course, is Chris Farrell.
Well, hello.
We also have Stargate Pioneer.
I've started to listen to Fifth Harmony this week.
What an accomplishment. And finally, we're pleased to say that today we have none other than Sunkast. Sunkast, how's it going?
The Earth is still flat.
Like this, man. Like this.
Oh, Sunkast, it's a pleasure to have you here tonight. Thank you so much for joining us today. I know that my stink is it transfers through the internet, and I'm sorry about that.
Yeah.
We're used to it.
It's all that Canadian trash.
Well, Sunkast, you know, all that really matters is if the Earth is flat underneath your feet.
Yeah. Okay, so let's just get this clear right.
Unless I'm drunk.
Let's just get this clear right now that Sunkast is our resident flat Earth correspondent. Isn't that right?
Something like that.
Yeah, and last week
I don't even know what side I'm supposed to be on anymore, so.
He's an Earth truther. That's what it comes down to. Earth truther.
I mean, even if the Earth is flat, there's still two sides, isn't there?
Whoa.
Maybe.
You just blew our mind.
Maybe.
I want to ask you this, Sunkast. Last week we talked briefly about the fact that there is a guy that went up in a rocket, and he's a flat earther. Is it you? Because you weren't around last week.
No,
that wasn't you. Oh, okay.
No, I'm not stupid enough to do something like that.
Are you sure you don't have an online alter ego name, Mad Mike?
No, I've got alter egos, but that's not one of them.
Do you have alter egos, though? That's the question.
I might.
All right, well, we're going to go ahead and talk about the latest happenings in the world of geek, as the intro said, and we also like to talk about news and whatnot. Now, before we get to that, I just want to let you know that we are part of the Gonna Geek Network. The Gonna Geek Network has a bunch of amazing geeky podcasts on that. If you haven't checked that out before, you definitely should. It is GonnaGeekNetwork.com. We've got stuff that covers television shows. We got stuff that covers other news. We got stuff that just is Sunkast sitting there watching paint dry. That's their latest addition to the Gonna Geek Network.
Ooh. What
My
color
application
paint
hasn't
is
been
it?
approved yet for the Flat Earth podcast.
I was going to make a flat earth joke, but then never mind.
Well, you have to watch paint dry on the surface of the flat Earth.
Yes.
There you go. What kind of paint is it? Is it semi-gloss? Is it satin? Is it flat?
It's
A beige
full gloss.
number 4.
He likes shiny.
All right, well, let's just go ahead and move into the news. Here we go. All right, first off in the news, we're going to play a little bit of Where's Waldo. That's right, for all you audio listeners, you're going to play along, right?
Well, of course they are.
Who wouldn't play Where's Waldo?
Well, Chris, what is this about? Tell me.
Well, so we've hit that magic time of year. As we record this, it's April 2nd. So yesterday was April 1st, April Fool's Day, the day when the internet becomes a fool for everything and tries to trick you of everything. But sometimes you get some good things that come out of April Fool's pranks. Google is especially known for doing a prank and then sometimes actually doing it for real. And what is it they're doing this time? They're bringing the classic game of Where's Waldo to Google Maps. That's right, on Android, iOS, and desktop, you can see Waldo pop up in his red and white stripes and give you a friendly wave. And if you want to play the game then, just tap on him or click on him and you'll see the option to play a game of Where's Waldo straight out of the books we all grew up with. This is part of Google's annual April Fool's Day jokes. But guys, this one is actually happening. You can play Where's Waldo for the next week by heading on over to maps.google.com and clicking on him. And you might have seen people sharing screenshots from Google Maps that say they're Where's Waldo masters and stuff now because they have found him so much. I'm super intrigued. I think this is a funny little Google thing to do that they'll get a lot of press for because people have fun with it. And hey, I wouldn't be surprised if it sticks around because you can still play Pac-Man on the Google Doodle.
Okay, what is this Google that you speak of?
They're the ones that own our souls.
I'm
Pretty much.
Is it like the company that makes those things that go over my eyes when I go skiing? Is that? I'm lost.
Well, they did
Completely
make
lost.
glasses at one point.
Oh, that's right, they did. I forgot about that. It was the Google Glass. The Google Glass. That
Yeah,
was
it wasn't
terrible.
really glasses. It was just glass. Hey, Chris, I've got a little bone to pick with you. You said we all grew up with Waldo. We didn't, man. Where's Waldo's first printing was in 1987. That was after I grew up.
Oh, sucks, dude. If you're a kid at heart, it was while you grew up, though.
Oh, nice pull.
There you go. See, do you feel better now, SP?
No, I feel terrible.
So
I feel old.
what we've learned from
sorry.
Chris's news point today is that SP's old. That's the moral of the story. He predates Where's Waldo.
And supposedly there will also be an element for Google Assistant on this where you'll be able to ask your Google Assistant, be it on your Google Home, your Chromebook, your smartphone, Where's Waldo? And there'll be some component that comes into play there. I haven't tried it yet because I'm afraid if I started playing, I wouldn't have done the podcast tonight because I'd be trying to find that damn man in his hat.
So what we've learned tonight as well is that Chris has a short attention span. That's point number 2.
Wait, what?
Well, sure, because he's still playing his Pokemon Go game.
Yeah, I play that all the time.
I'm intentionally leaving that silence in, by the way. Moving on to the next news point here. Let's talk a little bit about a steaming pile of something.
Ooh.
That's right, I went there. Yeah, if you've
More
ever...
trash talk from Canada.
You know what? We don't like this device. That's like the worst insult that I had. We politely request that you stop making it. That's what I said to Steam when they made Steam machines. That's right. If you weren't familiar with Steam machines were supposed to take PC gaming to a whole new level by simplifying the setup and making it easy to hook up these said Steam machines to a television. Now, the thing with Steam machines is they didn't really take off. When they were originally announced, Valve ended up saying that there'd be huge names in PC gaming that would make these Steam machines, such as Gigabyte, Asus, Alienware, Falcon Northwest, and a whole bunch more. And eventually these vendors realized, wait, this isn't going to be profitable. And so they backed out. This was way back in 2013. These debuted and they've been around a little bit here and there. Well, guess what? Now it seems that quietly these Steam machines have been removed. Yes, if you were looking to buy a Steam machine, you might want to go ahead and try to find a third party somewhere because the portal's just slowly disappeared. And that's not a good thing because if you wanted a Steam machine now, you can't get it. Like I said, steaming pile of something. Chris, you are a resident gamer here. Let me ask you this. Did you follow the Steam machines at all?
I almost bought one when it went dirt cheap on an Amazon sale because I knew I could install Windows over top of it then and the hardware was good. It's an interesting move, but it's a move they didn't have to do because if you remember, part of Valve's move for doing Steam machines is they were worried about what Microsoft was going to do to PC gaming. They were afraid that Microsoft had too much control at the OS level as to what was going on and that they would be basically a net negative effect for PC gamers. So this was their attempt to roll something out to counter what they presumed was going to be Microsoft screwing everything up because they wanted everyone to play Xbox and things like that. Here's the thing, though. Microsoft really hasn't changed how PC gaming works on any Windows machines at this point in time. People are still playing PUBG and Fortnite and all sorts of other games off of Valve. the concern of Microsoft locking things down so that you can only buy things through the Microsoft Store. Because remember, that was one of the things talked about at Windows 8 was, oh, they're going to lock everything down to that. Never happened. So really the motivation for Steam machines, it's not important at this point in time. So it kind of makes sense that Valve would begin to de-emphasize a little bit, because this was not a moneymaker by them. This was an attempt to basically keep people buying games from Steam in case Microsoft did the unthinkable and locked down their machines so you could only purchase through the Windows Store. So it makes sense if you still want one. I don't know why you would want one. You can still go to the Alienware page, the Falcon Northwest page, and things like that. They're still selling them direct from there, but Valve has de-emphasized them now.
I was actually looking at an Alienware box, Steam box, to use as a streaming PC on my media center, and it's actually got some decent hardware in it, which would be good, but it came with that Steam OS. And I was like, yeah, you know what? I don't want to do that. And I found out that you can replace it with Windows 10. There's a fix to go ahead and do that. So I missed the sale because I didn't know you could replace the OS, but I wouldn't want any of these machines with just Steam OS on. I would definitely want to replace the OS because Steam OS is just not going to be supported going forward. Right. And even if it is supported, it's going to be buggy and it's going to allow for security breaches because it's not going to be patched as fast.
Sunkast, did you follow the Steam machines at all?
No, but I did want to ask Chris, do you know how many of these machines might have been sold?
There was an article I read, and I can't remember what it was. I took about 20 minutes during my lunch today to flip through the tech blogs while I was eating lunch, and there was somewhere I read it was like 500,000 had been sold.
Yeah, that's a pretty low quantity. And that was my concern, is that, I mean, what's the point of this device now? There seems like there's so few people running these things that it's just them trying to get rid of the hardware at this point. So,
well, that's the difficult part about buying here is that you don't know. You might be buying something that's just going to end up sitting in a garbage bin in 6 months, right? You don't know what is the support going to be. So, I thought the idea was cool when I first heard about these, but obviously it didn't take off, and it's really not surprising because I think people who want to play on their computers want to play on their computers, and those who want to play on their TV are going to go with like a console. So it's really not that surprising to me. They're so similar yet so different, and it just seems people are very passionate about one than the other.
So let me clarify. It was an article from last year at this time where they had sold 500,000 of them. So presumably there is more than 500,000, but I would not assume a larger number than that right now.
Like I was saying, the Alienware box that I was looking at had a robust hardware system in it. It had like an i7 processor. It had 32, I believe, gigabytes of RAM. The hard drive, I think, was 500, but it was an SSD, 500 gigabytes. And it had, I want to say like a 980 GTX graphics card in it, which is all good. The problem that I was looking at it was that it was a lot of advanced heated hardware to have in such a small little box, and I wasn't sure about the cooling. And I guess that was an issue with those Alienwares, is that they overheated and then melted some of the components on the inside or made them so they didn't work. So that was another reason why I didn't grab it. But I was thinking, just for a stream box, literally to stream online stuff, whether it's Hulu, Vudu, whatever, I think that would have worked great, and I missed it. These also were pretty expensive for what they were. Mm-hmm. Like you would want them to be like in the $500 range, and they were like in the $1,500 to $2,000 range. And you would expect that because the hardware inside it was just too expensive for what they were.
I think this is a move for them to depreciate a bit of what they've been doing with hardware. Because if you watched this weekend, there's a little box they sell called the Steam Link, which basically you can hook to your TV and then it wirelessly connects, or through your wired network connects to your PC to allow you to play Steam games that way. They had it down. If you're wireless, it's pretty laggy. Supposedly, if you're wired, it's not terrible. They had that box bundled with a game for $1 this weekend, and this is not the first time the Steam Link has been down to that price. So something's going on this thought of let's clear out some of this hardware. Let's start depreciating what we're doing with this hardware stuff. And I've also seen the Steam controller down to pretty cheap prices off and on. And if you want to use that, you're a braver soul than I am, but it's out there.
I think one of the more interesting things is the fact that how difficult it is to have a successful operating system in these days. Because you look at SteamOS, it's not going anywhere, and there's been several other operating systems over the years, most recent years, that just have never really taken off.
You know, it's true, and the Steam Link, I think, is interesting and sort of related to that, just because of the fact that it is running something that is meant to stream a computer over, right? And if you ended up having a success with that, then you would see like the Windows apps and things like that end up being a little bit more popular, and they're not, right? You know, like there is no development within the Windows Store, it seems like, anymore, and stuff that's in there is outdated. And there's the Steam Link gave the massive potential to sort of bridge the two, and it just never happened. I actually have a Steam Link somewhere, and I don't know where it is. I bought it on a Boxing Day clearance, and the idea was to hook it up so that I could play like Jackbox games or something, and I just never have gotten around to it yet. It was pretty cheap at the time, but maybe it's not even worth my time anymore. I don't know. Next up in the news, SP, tell me a little bit about why the Hubble remains our go-to telescope still. This is exciting for us.
Yeah, I guess it is. So, Stephen, the date that the Hubble will no longer be functioning remains to be 2020. They haven't pushed that out at all yet. That's been the date for a while, 2020. But in the meantime, I've been looking forward to the Hubble's replacement. It's actually the replacement for a few capabilities, the Kepler, Hubble, a few other satellites. The James Webb Space Telescope, it's still under development, and they had a big announcement last Thursday, March 27th. And this article on space.com by Sarah Lewin said that NASA has delayed the launch of the James Webb until no earlier than May 2020. Nearly a year later than planned, which was supposed to be 2019 at the latest announcement, and yet the origins of the program was supposed to be 2018, was supposed to be this year. But the need for more testing of the telescope's intricate systems and setbacks, including tears in the tennis court-sized sunshield, has led to the delay. So this is a quote from the acting NASA administrator. By the way, we have an acting NASA administrator because Congress hasn't actually approved an administrator, nor has the Trump administration actually nominated a administrator. However, the acting administrator, Robert Lightfoot, said, all the observatory's flight hardware is now complete. However, the issues brought to light with the spacecraft's elements are prompting us to take the necessary steps to refocus our efforts on the completion of this ambitious and complex observatory. Now, NASA actually built the spacecraft in two parts. It built the telescope itself with the large array mirror, and then it built the complicated sun shield that's going to protect the delicate instruments from the sun. So it's going to have this big shield behind it, and it's going to point off away from the sun. So while all the flight hardware is now complete, testing of some parts of the hardware has taken longer than expected. For instance, rather than taking 2 weeks to deploy for the first time and a month to fold and stow, the sun shield took a month to deploy and 2 months to fold and stow. So there's been some delays along the way. Now, we've been following the schedule, or I've been following the schedule here on Gonna Geek. Remember the whole hurricane testing? It made it through okay. Well, I've been looking at what have the results been of these testings, and they haven't come out with anything. This is the first that they've come out with and said, yeah, there's been some schedule delays. And another scheduled delay was the cable that is used to pull the sun shield into place just had too much slack, and that led to some tears in the sun shield. And this is actually pretty familiar for sailors. If you have a sailboat and you have an ability to bring the main sail down to the mast and then put it in a bag, there's actually cables that guide the sail on the way down so it just doesn't unfurl all over the deck. Well, they're doing the same thing with the James Webb, and unfortunately there's just too much slack in the cables, and that led to some tears. The largest of the two tears, there was several tears, but the largest two were 4 inches across. So Dennis Andrucki, who's the Deputy Associated Administrator for NASA's Science Mission Directorate, said, in addition, primarily the propulsion system, we've had a scheduled delay due to a transducer that was incorrectly powered. We needed to replace that. That resulted in a 3-month hit to the schedule. An incorrect solvent was run through the propulsion system, and as a result, we wound up having to replace a couple valves, and a catalyst bed heater was accidentally overstressed in that process and needed to be replaced. These are avoidable errors, but in developing very complex systems, those things do happen, unquote. So the potential for more issues arose in February. We didn't talk about this on the podcast, but I definitely was keeping track of it. There was a report from the Government Accountability Office that warned that the telescope is facing a high probability of more delays, and that could push the telescope beyond its budget cap. Here's the history on that. In 2001, Congress assigned the telescope to a cost cap of $8 billion prior to launch. I think we talked about this before, $8 billion. So, quote, following data from an independent assessment, NASA has determined that the Webb launch date milestone will be delayed from its baseline by more than 6 months, and its development cost estimate might exceed the $8 billion development limit. And that's from Lightfoot. Quote, if we breach the $8 billion cost that was laid out by the congressional appropriations, the project will need to be reauthorized by Congress, unquote. So officials are still reviewing the possible cost increase, but NASA is scheduled to submit a detailed report to Congress later this summer with the impact to the cost and schedule. So this is a program management thing. You take a look at where you are, you revisit the whole program, and then you see how much it's really going to cost. I don't think that this is going to be canceled. I think we're too far along. I think that with the Hubble designed to cease operations in 2020, I think with the entire scientific community really throwing behind this, I think it's going to happen. I just don't know how much more money they're going to have to throw into it. And the NASA budget is a zero-sum game, meaning that if this project needs more money, like if it needs $1 billion more to actually get into space, that money's coming out of other things, perhaps a mission to Mars, perhaps some smaller scientific missions. I don't know. That is between Congress and NASA and, quite honestly, the president, because the president submits the budget to Congress. But this is a big deal, and it's going to impact NASA one way or another. So when the James Webb Space Telescope finally flies, it will definitely be the largest space observatory ever launched. The observatory has 7 times the light collecting power of Hubble, so it's better than Hubble. It will operate at ultra-cool temperatures and be able to detect infrared light from the universe's earliest stars and galaxies. As we talked about before, it's not a visual telescope, it's an infrared telescope. And as well, it will analyze the atmospheres of distant planets as they pass in front of their stars, kind of like what Kepler was originally doing.
I have a question.
Quest.
I don't understand something here. Can you tell me why they're crying on this telescope?
Why they're crying?
Yeah, you were talking about tears.
Yeah, I heard that too.
Well, it's a tears to fears sort of thing, you know.
You know, the other part of it that I heard was that there was a tear in the space-time continuum, and that meant that the acting director, Rob Liefeld, was in charge of NASA.
Well, so the tear in space-time continuum is going to be sealed up by all the gravitonium that is going to be compressed and thrown into it.
There's your Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. reference right there. All right. Well, you know, I'm sorry to hear that your project's getting canceled, that it's never going to get up there, and that we'll continue to love the Hubble forever. I'm sorry. Sorry to hear that, SB.
Well, the Hubble's not going to stay up there forever. It's going to run out of fuel to maintain its altitude. Matter of fact, it doesn't really have any fuel to maintain its altitude. So eventually it's going to go the way of the Chinese space station, which, Stephen, I'm shocked that you are still there because the Chinese were clearly targeting your house. How did that not happen?
Yeah, that was for the extra, but that's okay. We'll talk about that now. Yeah, apparently that space station that SB talked about previously came on down. I'm not sure if you heard about that in previous episodes, but there was a Chinese space station that was being tested and whatnot. It was going to be deorbited, and by SP's calculation, it was supposed to end up crashing and hitting me. And so then apparently it didn't happen. It landed somewhere everywhere else. Or I'm all CGI. That's the question.
I think you're a scary ghost.
We know that he's a robot, so you can clone robots. I mean, that's easy to do.
That's true. That's a fair point. Okay. So anyways, if you were hit by that Chinese space station, please do let us know. Get in touch with us through any of the ways. You can find it all at GonnaGeek.com. Next up in the news, we've got Pokemon Go troubles. Isn't that right, Sunkast? Your beloved Pokemon Go. What's going on?
It's Niantic. You know it's Niantic, so they just can't do anything, right? So if you remember, we talked about this last year. Niantic held this event in Chicago called Chicago Fest, an in-person event where I think like thousands of people bought tickets and attended this fest in Chicago in person for all these cool Pokemon things that they did in the game. And unfortunately, Niantic didn't quite execute things to plan. A lot of people that attended that event weren't able to actually play Pokemon Go at all. Reason being is that the cell phone towers were so overloaded by all the players that nobody could get on the server. So we talked about this back in, I believe.
Let me just double check this. So they went to have a Pokemon Go event and they couldn't play said Pokemon Go. Is that right?
Yes.
So that would be like spending billions of dollars on a telescope to not be able to put the telescope in space. Is that right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, just double checking.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people spent their money to actually travel to Chicago from other places and even other countries. This was back, I believe, July of 2017. And a lot of people were upset about this because they spent their money getting to this event from other countries and other parts of the United States. And so there was a class action lawsuit, and that's now been settled, and Niantic will pay out up to $1.5 million to those that are affected. However, there's a couple of things. So they're going to have a website put up by May 25th for all individuals that were affected. And to qualify for this settlement, users have to have checked into the festival in the game, and anyone who has expenses that total more than $107 will need to provide receipts.
Wait a minute. You just said that they couldn't connect to the game because the servers were overloaded.
Yes.
Now you see the catch.
Oh, well done. That's how you get out of a class action lawsuit right there. There you go. Oh, that is a disaster. Absolutely a disaster. And
I tell you, Niantic cannot execute anything very well.
wow.
The festival was a huge black eye for them. To call it a cluster frack was generous in this case.
And they were planning to have more than just this one event in Chicago, and they haven't really done anything since in person, anything near the scale of what they were trying to do.
You know, I think I've mentioned it before on here, but having an event like this that centers around a phone and having something like this go wrong is mind-blowing, absolutely mind-blowing in today's day and age, because you hear about these problems and you've heard about them for like 10 years, and things are getting better. You used to have this happen pretty much at like every single Apple event, every single other main big tech event, but they fixed the darn issues because they know that it's going to be a problem. So you still have this go wrong in the year 2017, 2018, whenever this was. Like, come on. Absolutely ridiculous. It is something that is completely 100% foreseeable.
Well, I think they underestimated the draw a little bit too. It's the common thread we've seen with
They
Pokemon.
sold tickets.
Well, okay, never mind. But let's be honest though, there were probably a lot of people that were hanging out right outside the venue trying to check in to make use of the fact that my GPS thinks I'm inside there. What am I going to catch? So now Niantic screwed up. I'm sure that's the case. I think we can all agree on that. But sometimes it's hard to estimate just what kind of coverage you need. Look at things like South by Southwest when you've got all these things set up. It doesn't always work out right, and you've got like AT&T rolling out cell phone trucks basically that have like giant antennas on them. They should have had a contingency plan is what it comes down to. It sounds to me that their contingency plan was absolute crap from what I remember.
Yeah, I love the fact that they were actually getting booed. The CEO of Niantic was getting booed at his own event.
That's fantastic.
That is good. Well, anyways, hopefully you checked into that event and hopefully you'll get your $130, was it?
7.
Sorry, 107. No, I gave them a little bit extra money.
Unless you have your receipts, Steven. And in
that's
today's world, nobody really does. So it's probably a matter of like, well, I can pull my credit card statement or I can pull my Apple Pay statement and show what's on there. But that's really tough because I don't know about you guys. I don't often hang on to receipts for things more than a few days afterwards and go, I don't need this anymore, and toss it in the shredder.
Well, anyways, let's just move on to the extra because that's just disappointing altogether. Next in the extra, what we're going to briefly talk about here is the fact that there is a notch. That's right, there's a notch. I don't know if you saw this, but the newest LG G7 stuff is out, and it's looking like well, it's a render, okay? So it's not a full release yet, but it looks like it's an official render, and it looks like the LG G7 will indeed have a notch. This is it's like herpes. That's what it is. The notch is like herpes. It just spreads and spreads and spreads. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I don't get it. You go and look, and there's all sorts of Android phones that are supposedly going to do this. They were showing off things at Mobile World Congress of concept phones with the notch. If there's a reason for it, it's fine, but don't just copy because everyone's like, well, Apple did it and it's cool now. The Essential phone did it. It made sense. It was a small notch. It worked out. Now you've got people putting a notch in there and you're like, what are you doing? Why? This makes no sense. Google's even updating Android P, the beta version's out right now, to have notch settings.
You know, there was a phone that I saw, an Android phone that I saw that did do the notch, and I did like how they gave you right out of the box the option to make it look like it wasn't a notch. That was kind of nice. So what it did was it took your icons and it put it next to the notch and in a black space. So it still was kind of curved, like how I've talked about before. I love the looks of the Samsung phones, the way that they've just got a small little bezel at that top. I love that. I think it looks really good and looks 1,000 times better than a notch. But so like for me, that's what I would end up doing if I had that. I would enable that so that it was just black space up there. But it just people are just copying the notch now.
Well, I mean, Essential, if you've looked at the Essential phone, the way they did it, it works right. And that was before Android was officially supporting it. So part of their trouble for things was they were having to write code to accommodate for the fact that not all apps would support that. The Essential phone is pretty damn nice. I mean, if it's old in comparison to everything else now because it's been out for almost a year, but their implementation of the notch was fairly successful and it was fairly unobtrusive. Apple's notch is so big because of the optics that are in there for the camera and the illumination, the infrared illumination that's provided. These other vendors, they're making giant notches, not for really any good reason other than the fact that Apple did it and we can shove a few things in there and people find it acceptable now. If it makes sense design-wise, do it. Don't do it because Apple did it. That's stupid, but we see that happen all the time. Huawei rips them off all the time. They did it with headphones. They're doing it with their current generation of phones. Xiaomi rips them off all the time. I think I said that correctly. You look at some of their new phones, what is it, the Mi 20 or something like that? It looks just like an iPhone 7. I'm tired of the copycat BS.
Yeah, no, I agree totally. Let me ask you this, Stargate Pioneer. You went through back and forth with the iPhone 8 and the X, and I think one of the things you cited was the notch, didn't you?
Yeah, I did, because I didn't really see any application for it. I did watch a few videos on it, which said the notch is stupid. It hinders a lot of the app performance. Although at the time, there were no apps that were designed to really optimize to use it. So they were actually reducing the total screen size because they would just take the screen without the notch and use it that way. But now I think 6 months later, I think we're at the point where you do have some apps that are optimized for it. And I think eventually you might get there where most of the apps are optimized to use the notch area, at least on the iPhone X. But if you have all these other companies, like if I had an Android phone and there were several different notches, and if I was an Android app developer, I'd be like, I don't have time to make a specific app for each individual notch out there. So I'm going to like choose one or two or none. And that's what it's going to be. unless there is a big demand for like a Galaxy S9 with a notch on it, or a Note 9 with a notch on it, or something like that. I just, as a developer, I'd be like, I'm wasting my time.
Yeah.
I need to work on the next generation stuff. I don't need to optimize, because the same app has got to work on phones without notches in it. It would just be too intensive to make apps that are costs.
For the audio viewer or audio listener, Sunkast, what exactly did you just hold up on screen?
My iPhone with a notch.
Yeah, that's right. He put the notch app on the on his iPhone 8, is it? Is it an 8?
Yeah. 8 Plus.
There you go. I feel like Chris, I do feel like you and me, Pixel Buddies, we need to add a little notch app on ours. Should we add a notch app?
Well, there's no need to. You just wait for Android P to come out, and it's designed to support up to, I think, 3 different kinds of notch types and give APIs and plugins for developers and to do things. No joke. Google already knew this was coming because people were going to want to do it. And the the developer edition of Android P is out there now, where there is support in there for notch-based apps. And I don't know whether that's in part to say, hey, you're building it for Apple, you can use that same framework to do our stuff. It's just dumb. It's stupid copycatting, because most of these people are just doing it to do it, not for any design reason.
You know what we can all agree on, though? The notch sucks, but what would be amazing would be a nacho on the phones, right? Nacho, like a dispenser.
Especially on Taco Tuesdays.
Yes, absolutely.
I like it. I
right.
approve.
There we go. Perfect. Also in our extra news section here, Instagram has apparently dropped an Apple Watch app. That's right. Apparently they have been the latest and greatest app to come to the Apple Watch. I don't have an Apple Watch, but I can see why this would be pretty handy. A lot of people they're showing Facebook right now. They're leaving Facebook and moving to Instagram. So you might as well make sure to capture that. The parent of Instagram better make sure to capitalize on that Facebook export. SP, can you remind me who owns Instagram?
The last time I heard, and I don't follow this because, I was kicked off of Facebook, but I'm pretty sure that the Facebook either bought or originated Instagram. So it's like one company. So it doesn't, if you're putting your information on Instagram, Facebook is still getting it and can still release it to whoever they want to.
Did you say the Facebook?
It is the Facebook.
I did say the Facebook.
It is the Facebook. It's more ominous. And if SP is not going to be on there, let's use the most ominous. All right. And finally, in our extra news point here, apparently there's something going on with the ISS and an HP printer.
Yeah, so this is actually very interesting. I know it sounds Monday, but yes, the ISS is getting a new printer. They're finally replacing their old printer, which is 17 years old. Yes, they're finally getting a new printer after 17 years. The interesting part of this is the fact that they had to design a printer that would work in zero gravity. So, like, everything on this printer had to be redesigned, including paper management, waste ink management, and even the plastic on this printer had to be flame retardant. So, thanks to 3D printing and HP, they were able to develop the NVISS, which is based off the OfficeJet 5740, which fulfilled the all zero G requirements.
Sorry, OfficeJet.
Yeah. But this is pretty cool that they've designed this printer that's going to replace a 17-year-old printer in space.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I never actually thought about it, because like they must have to have one, right? And I never thought about what would be involved with that. That's pretty interesting, and I'm surprised that long, to be honest. I'm very surprised.
But
I'm surprised the old printer still works.
The ink cartridges cost $2.5 billion.
Oh,
wow.
Jeez, that's crazy.
Okay, so let me ask this, though. Do they follow the consumer philosophy where when the ink just runs out, they get a new printer because it's cheaper? Same thing?
Probably.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
What sort of things do they end up printing in space?
So let me see where they talked about this. They print a lot of like mission critical stuff, mission critical reports, anything that they deem as mission critical. letters from home, photographs from home, that sort of stuff. They said they go through about 2 reams of paper every single month.
Wow. That's a lot more than I expected.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I feel bad for the guy, though, that accidentally prints like all of the website that he's on. You know, there's the one guy in the office that does that. It's got to happen in space, right?
Prints his personal homework, kids' homework on the color printer.
Yeah, kids' homework. That's what the website I was talking about. Yes.
I said to print page 20, not print 20 copies.
Well, that's cool. I actually hadn't heard about that. So thanks very much for sharing that there, secret director of SNASA's assistant vice president, assistant director, Sunkast.
That makes my head hurt.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's go ahead and move into our next segment. Here we go. It's your favorite time for another edition of Geek Wars. If you're not familiar with Geek Wars, what we like to do in this segment here is we like to find out who is the biggest geek. I ask a series of questions and the contestants have an opportunity to ring in on said question and answer said question. At the end, we will end up with one winner or possibly a tie. Now, the way that people do ring in is they must say their name. So they must. Okay, whatever. I don't care. I have video. I can see you guys. It's not as funny when it's.
I don't care. I have video. Yeah, I can see you guys.
Whatever you guys want.
It's a bit long.
Yeah, whatever you guys want. You can ring in, and the person who does get the greatest points does end up being deemed the biggest geek. Now, here's one of the things that I want to remind our contestants about, and as well as our live audience, is that the contestants are supposed to not read the Geeks.live chat. But if you could withhold your answers till they've answered, just, to make sure that they don't cheat, because let's be honest, all of them are cheaters.
I'll put a post-it note up over my screen. Yeah, I cheat all the time. That's how I win. If you're not cheating, you're not trying.
Damn right.
All right, let's go ahead and and just to recap, by the way, if somebody gets it wrong, the other contestants can ring in as well. All right, so let's start off with the category of movies. We'll throw you a light one this time, because it seems like all of my light ones have been a disaster out of the gate. This one I know is a light one.
It's true.
Who is the actor who first played James Rhodes in the Marvel Cinematic Universe?
Chris.
All right, Chris, what do you got?
Terrence Howard.
That's absolutely correct. Now, Chris, do you know the backstory with Terrence Howard? Why he was not renewed, allegedly?
Because he wanted more money than Robert Downey Jr. to do Iron Man 2 and got butthurt because Robert Downey Jr. was getting a pay raise. So they basically said, yeah, you're fired.
There was also rumors, too, that he wanted some creative control in it, or he got like final approval or something like that. So
Rhodey's the sidekick. How the hell do you think you're going to get creative control?
Because he was War Machine in Iron Man 2, though.
Terrence Howard. But yeah, Terrence Howard was only in the first one, though, right?
Yes.
All right. So Chris is at 1. SP is at 0. Sunkast is at 0. All right. Next up, in the realm of sci-fi, we have this question. What is the name of the biomechanical ship in Farscape?
Oh,
I never watched it. No clue.
Sunkast, this was your question. This was for you.
I know, but I haven't watched Farscape in many years.
All right.
I've seen the pilot episode.
Okay, I got it. Wasn't it Leviathan?
No, it was not Leviathan. That was, I believe, the species, I think, but not the name of the ship.
Was it Chris?
By the way, okay, so SP's going to answer next, but or is that your question? Your answer was it Chris?
No, I buzzed in.
Okay, before you buzz in, though, in the chat we have Albert Sims saying Shippy McShipface. So
you took my joke. I was going to say Bodie McBoatface.
All right, and SP, what's your guess?
I seem to remember it's like Moya.
Yes, it is Moya. You are right. Or
oh my gosh!
Or reading the chat.
I've literally only seen the pilot.
Or reading the chat. One of the two.
Oh, nope.
All right, so SP is at 1, Chris is at 1, and Sunkast is at 0. By the way, if you do want to check us out as we record this live and play along, you can always do that. It is streamed on Mondays at 8:45 p.m. Eastern at geeks.live. Question number 3 is in the technology category. Name the famous spokesperson for Priceline.com.
Chris.
All right, Chris, what is it?
William Shatner.
That is William Shatner.
Or do you want Kaylee Cuoco?
No, he is no longer doing it.
She still does it from time to time, and it's Kaylee Cuoco now who has the role.
Anyways, it was the famous one. So Chris is at 2,
What?
SP's at 1.
She is more popular than he is.
You know what? I would
No.
have taken either answer. So there you go.
I gave both. Can I have 2 points?
No, you may not.
No.
You don't
Can
get
he have half a point taken off because he asked that question?
No.
I'm tempted. All right. Next up, in the next question we've got is this is the category of space. So this should go to Sunkast or to Stargate Pioneer.
This is one of the SNASA boys.
Name the alias for the famous piece of Canadian space shuttle technology, also known as the Shuttle Remote Manipulator System.
Chris.
All right, go ahead there, Stargate Pioneer.
It's the arm.
That's not the alias.
Richard.
All right, Richard, what would you like, Suncast?
Is it? Well, I know. Isn't it just the Canada arm?
So close, yet so far. Chris, do you have one last guess?
Richard Hatt.
All right, Chris, what's your guess?
Richard Hatt.
Okay, it's
No.
it was actually, and Suncast, I will give you a half a point for this. It is actually regularly called the Canada arm, but it's actually the Canadarm. There's only one A, so it's CANADARM because it's a play on Canada. So
It's called a dang thing the arm.
so Chris is at 2, SP is at 1, and Suncast is at 0.5.
I'm looking this up right now. Just it does say Canada on it, so
yeah, and it says Canadarm. If you actually look up if you go to the Canada Space Agency section on it or the Wikipedia page, it actually
nothing.
says.
Nope.
Is it going to
say
end
Canada.
up on the Red Dragon going to Mars? No. So who cares?
Yeah, it says it's the Canadarm.
Who
So it's
cares?
CANADARM. All right.
I was robbed.
So next up in the world of web, we have the question of WordPress is one of the most infamous content management systems. What is the name of the content management system, aka CMS, that was developed by Open Source Matters?
Richard.
All right, Suncast.
I'm just gonna take a guess. Is it Drupal?
It is not Drupal. I was gonna actually do the answer is Drupal, but it's not Drupal. So would anybody else care to guess? No? Going once? Going twice? Sold! I wish I had one of those tappy things. Gavels. So it was actually Joomla. Or as I should say, because it has the exclamation point, Joomla! Because they have the
That
exclamation point.
thing was such a piece of crap.
Yeah.
I think that's the first time I ever heard that name.
Really?
Like the first, yes, the first.
Yeah, I think so too.
I don't know. I see it every time I go into cPanel to install WordPress. It's the icon next to WordPress. All right. So next up, we've got a question in the category of tech. The most famous keyboard configuration in the English language is QWERTY. What is the also known as the simplified keyboard configuration,
Chris?
which was, yes?
Dvorak.
It is Dvorak. If you're not familiar with Dvorak, actually my brother used it for a little while. If you look at your keyboard, look down at your keyboard, audio listener, right now. It's a QWERTY in the first row of actual letters. There is one that actually starts with DVORAK, and it's a whole other keyboard layout. So you'd have to relearn that, but a lot of people who use that layout say that they really like it. Now, the actual patent on that layout first was in 1936, believe it or not. I'm guessing it must have been with a typewriter.
I tried to do it. It was tough. I gave up after about 2 days of trying to force myself to do it because I was just so used used to the QWERTY keyboard layout. It's tough.
And by the way, in the chat, Albert Sims says that the layout was FARTY. That was the layout.
I like it.
I actually think I saw your brother using the Dvorak keyboard at one point in time. I was kind of impressed, and I vowed I would never do it.
I was super, super impressed when he learned that, because that is such a mind shift to try to learn another keyboard. I can only imagine how complicated that was. I think he's back to QWERTY now. We should have asked him.
Can you imagine how tough it is? Like, you go to your friend's house, hey, can I steal your computer for a second? You look down, and it's Dvorak, and you're like, the crap is this? Or vice versa. You go to your friend's house, and you've been typing on Dvorak, and like, I can go back to QWERTY now. My muscle memory's frozen. It doesn't work.
Let's face it, if you're me, you're just using 2 fingers anyway, so it really doesn't matter.
The hunt and peck.
You're looking at the keyboard, and it's fine.
All right, next question that we've got, because we have a few more here in the end. By the way, that means that we're still at Chris with 2, SP at 1,
3.
Chris at 3, SP at 1.
He gets -1 for correcting you on that.
And Sunkast at 0.5 times 0. Okay, so in the world of sci-fi, we have name the actor who now stars in his own sci-fi show, who made 2 appearances in Star Trek Enterprise, playing a character named, quote, Engineer, and in another episode named Ensign Rivers. So it's an actor who now stars in his own sci-fi show that made 2 appearances in Star Trek Enterprise, playing a character named Engineer, and then another named Ensign Rivers.
His own sci-fi. Which sci-fi shows are on these days? Well, I guess there's The Expanse.
Come on. Hint. It's one that we've talked about on this show.
That doesn't narrow things down very much.
Double hint. It's one that we mentioned in our recent television discussion.
It was Krypton. I'm not watching that thing.
Chris?
All right, Chris, you have a guess?
Seth MacFarlane?
It is Seth MacFarlane. Yeah, he appeared in 2 episodes. Yeah.
Really? I had no idea.
Yeah. So Chris is at 4, SP's at 1, and Suncast is at 0.5.
I just knew he liked Trek, so I was making a leap there.
Yeah. Yeah. And by the way, Albert Sims in the chat says Seth McFox-a-lot. This is his name. All right. In the world of TV, come on, you can do this. I know this. One of you 3 can do this.
Please tell me you're going to ask me how many episodes are in this series, Ally McBeal.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
It's all you, man.
I'll give him 2 points if he knows it.
Yeah.
Name the Canadian...
It's 112.
Is it 112? Wow, that's impressive. Name the Canadian alt-rock band that wrote and recorded the theme song to The Big Bang Theory.
Chris.
All right, Chris, what is it?
Who are the Bare Naked Ladies?
Oh, wow, you've just dominated this game again. And in our second to last question, we have, in the category of tech, name the 1990s storage platform that features massive disks. Well, they were considered massive at the time, that had 100, 250, and 750 megabyte options.
Richard.
Well, this is
Sunkast.
Zip disk.
It is a zip disk. There you go. 1.5 for Suncast.
What about the Jazz Drive, though?
You know what? I thought about making that question about the Jazz Drive, but I thought I'd go more mainstream. So,
all right, that's fair.
Yeah.
I see what game you're playing now.
I know.
I like it. I like it a lot.
And let's go ahead and end this one on a Star Trek question. In the category of sci-fi, James Cromwell is best known for being Zephram Cochrane in the, believe it or not, 1996 movie Star Trek First Contact.
Old.
I know, doesn't that make you feel old? Name any one of his previous roles in Star Trek.
Well, I'm out.
Zephram Cochrane in Star Trek Enterprise.
No, not. I said previous roles. I didn't say previous. Nice try. And I'll take a description, like, a description of the episode, what he looked like. I'll take any of them.
He was a president on 24.
He was, I want to say he was always an alien, but that's not true because I seem to remember his face, but I don't remember any of the storylines around it. It's been too long. I need to do a rewatch.
Didn't he play an admiral at one point?
No.
No.
Okay, so nobody's going to get this. So he played Haddock in the Deep Space Nine episode Starship Down. He played Jaglom Shrek in the 2-parter Birthright. and he also played Prime Minister Nehrakin in The Hunted. So basically, two aliens and not human. So that's what it was.
Yeah, we weren't going to get that one.
No,
Steven.
but I thought maybe one of you were like, I know this one. So there you go.
No.
But that is going to take us to another that is going to take us to another end of the edition of Geek Wars. If you didn't follow along, that means Chris is again the winner with 5. SP is taking up the rear with 1, and Sunkast is 1.5.
You know, you get old and you need that prostate massaged.
Oh, God, that's not what I said.
What is happening? Why?
All right. So if you did not follow us along live, again, you can always check us out when we record this live on Mondays at 8:45 p.m. Eastern Time at www.geeks.live. We do stream our live recordings. We encourage you to come by, chat in the chat room, heckle us, tell SP how you don't want to hear about his prostate, any of these things. Come on by.
You guys will get there soon enough.
But seriously, we do like to see people around at geeks.live. It's a lot of fun. But if you do check us out afterwards, we appreciate that as well. And if you could just hit us up on Twitter at Gonna Geek and let us know where you're listening, we absolutely want to hear from you. And the reason I say at Gonna Geek is because, yes, we do have facebook.com/Gonna Geek, but at least SP is on Twitter. So solidarity right there. That's what it is.
When are we going to stream on Twitter?
I've thought about it, but anyways, Sunkast, you are here. Would you like to plug or promote anything or tell everybody where they can find you aside from taking snapshots of Stargate Pioneer?
Yeah, well, you can find me on GFQ Network. I do all this stuff over there unwillingly sometimes. You can also follow me on Twitter at Sunkast. That's SUNKAST.
Awesome. Thank you very much for coming on here. Chris, do you have anything that you'd like to plug or promote?
I can't get past SP talking about prostate. I'm so flustered. I have no idea what to talk about.
Okay, well, let me throw you a segue here, okay? Because I was hopping on the youtube.com/Gonna Geek just yesterday.
Sure.
And I noticed a very familiar face on the Starling Tribune. Would you care to tell me about who said familiar face was on the Starling Tribune?
Oh, that's a great one. I'm glad you're here to put me back on track, Stephen. That's right. We just talked about the most recent episode of Arrow in the Starling Tribune, and we were joined by former regular host, now part-time guest host, Neil joined us again to talk about this latest episode of Arrow, where we find out who is leaving the show. And thankfully, Neil was able to join us to come talk about that.
Can I just say, by the way, risk of spoiler alert, I am very glad that she is leaving because I'm sick of this on and off thing that they've done for the last 3 years with her. So, so glad that she's leaving. And you know what? I actually had wished that she had died in the episode because I just am so done with this on-off thing. And I don't like the fact that there's a chance of her bringing her back now. But, you know, hopefully this just means that it won't be until the series finale that she comes back.
Yes, I love it when they take one of the actors who can actually act and have them leave the show.
She can't act.
See,
what are you talking about?
See, you're thinking of this the wrong way. I actually would subscribe to Michelle's stance on this whole thing, and that they could create another story out of this in another like part-time show, you know, quick show, even if it's on the CW seed or something like that. I would want to watch that storyline between those actors that have now left the show. And I will say that today we were blindsided. I'll say I'm blindsided with the surprise that the Starling Tribune is going to be around for another year, folks. Yep, that's right, because Arrow got renewed.
It did. I will say this.
Why?
From the perspective, by the way, none of that surprises me. If you guys want to hit me up offline, go ahead. I'm not going to waste time now talking about it, but it doesn't surprise me at all. I've had a theory about CW shows for the last couple of years. Twitter.com/Stephen Jondra, hit me up there. But I will say this. I like Michelle's idea about sort of a micro series or a mini series or whatever. That's fine, but I don't want them having her come in and go back like we've seen. We're talking about Thea Queen, by the way. Okay, I'm sick of her coming back and like being in a coma and then back and out, and it's like there's this constant in and out that she's had over the last few years. So I'm good with her being off of Arrow And yes, the three that are together now, I would absolutely watch that show. But from an Arrow standpoint, I'm glad she's gone. And I disagree. I don't think she can act very well. So, anyways.
Agree to disagree.
She's always...
I'll disagree because she's definitely been great with everything that they've actually handed her. She's grown a lot as an actor since the beginning of the show.
Okay, I will disagree. SP, do you have anything that you want to plug or promote?
Sure. I'm also on this podcast called Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D., which incidentally has an Alexa skill. So if you say a word, enable my Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. skill, it will actually enable it. So you can try that out. You can listen to a podcast on its own skill on the Amazon device.
By the way, for those of you who are watching the video side of things, skip on back 10 seconds and you can watch Chris Farrell and I both check our devices at the exact same time. But that is going to take us to the end of the show. So for episode number 234 of the official GonnaGeek.com show, I'm Steven John Drew. I am Batman. And I'm thanking Sunkast for coming on tonight.
And I'm SP, and I'm going to be listening to Fifth Harmony Work From Home when we're done.
Cotton candy, sweetie girl, let me see the Tootsie Roll.
I'm Chris Farrell, and this is my prize for winning a lollipop.
Bye.
Thanks for checking out another episode of the official GonnaGeek.com show. If you like the show, please give us a 5-star review in Apple Podcasts or a thumbs up on YouTube. You can always join us for our live recording sessions, which stream Mondays at 8:45 p.m. Eastern at www.geeks.live. And remember, you can find our full back catalog at GonnaGeek.com/show. If you're itching for more geeky content, check out other shows on GonnaGeekNetwork.com. Voice work was by Emily Prokop of the Story Behind podcast. That's it for this episode. We hope to see you back again next week.